Alright guys, so we're gonna get this scribe completed. We're gonna carve it out, and now there's a number of ways to remove that material. One of the tried and true ways is with a chisel and a mallet, right? You could use a gouge, you could use a straight chisel. I go straight to an angle grinder with a carving disc. So this carving disc is pretty cheap from Amazon, and this angle grinder, well, I think you can recognize the red and the black. Harbor Freight, I had any doubts on that. So obviously it's gonna be very dusty, so I wear breathing protection, hearing protection, gloves, you know it. Getting sawdust into your lungs for a prolonged period of time is the exact way to make sure that you don't live very long. I'm gonna clamp this guy down, and then I'm gonna start on one face, rotate it, do the other face, and then eventually I'm gonna get to the center pieces, and I'm gonna to the center section, which is gonna be jutting out a little bit. Then I'm gonna push that entire section back. Remember, the only section that I'm really concerned about is gonna be the perimeter, not so much the center. Everybody's always asking, very curious about how the center matches perfectly, and it doesn't. It doesn't match perfectly. Now, I'm not gonna hollow this out maybe 4 or 5 inches into it, but I will hollow it out maybe 1/4 of an inch, so that when I look at it from the side, the only section that I should see jutting out is gonna be the perimeter. This piece being so small, I can cut that and then take it back to the stone, test it, come back over here, make my adjustments, and test it. And it's not gonna be that, you know, it's not very labor intensive to do that. Let's go ahead and carve this guy out. Let me show you what I do. Alright, so that's a pretty good contour that we have on there. Let's go test it out and see what it does. Okay, so that's pretty good, but you could see that gap right there. It's kind of consistent with this gap over here, and that means that the interior is still too high. So it's actually touching on the interior of the post as opposed to on the perimeter. So that means that we got to reduce it by that much on the inside. So let's get back to grinding. So this is what that scribe looks like right now, and I kind of set this up because I knew it wasn't going to fit perfectly. I intentionally did not hollow out enough in the center over here, and as you can see, there's some high spots right there. Usually this is a telltale sign. If the angle right here is perfectly flat, that means that it's going to rest on the interior as opposed to on the perimeter. So pieces like this, I don't know if you guys could tell, but initially when I was working with the grinder, I was carving outward like this, right, with the disc kind of going like this, and then after I got pretty close to the line, I intentionally turned the disc so that it was cutting more inward like that. And that's actually what we need to do now. So to carve inward a little bit better, we're going to use a different tool. That carving disc is great for getting that initial first cut, but you need something a little bit tighter. So I like to use this sphere, and that allows me to really get up to the edge without disturbing the scribed perimeter. Okay, so this one I'm only going to use on the interior, and this is really effective for hollowing out the timber on the inside. So same things, I'm going to clamp it down, and then I'm going to get right up to those corners as best I can and right underneath that scribe. So I'll write it like this. Now just be careful, because this one does walk on you a little bit more than the carving disc. It's almost, you have to think about chainsaw safety when you use this guy. Alright, let's get to carving. Another way to get rid of those high spots is by using a ball peen hammer. So what you're doing is compressing the fibers inward, and this is really beneficial, especially on these corners over here, because that grinder is very easy to get away from you. Just be careful when you get to the edge that you don't smash it too much. It helps sometimes to put a piece of wood on the top or kind of hold your hand against it so you don't destroy the edge there. Alright, let's see how it fits. Now there's a little bit of a loose scribe over here, so you can see that there's a gap on this side and not so much on this side. That could just be the way that I was holding the contour. You can see it's like about 1 millimeter over here. I can't even fit my fingernail to really get under there. But the really important part is that these lines are level, or that they're perfectly plumb. So let's go ahead and take the plumb and make sure that it's exactly where we need it to be. Okay, so in this direction, it's perfectly plumb. And this is a little bit embarrassing, but I'm gonna show it to you guys anyway. On this side, it is not plumb at all. In fact, we're off by about that much. So there's a couple things that we could do here. So one is rescribe it and get the exact, this guy needs to come over this way, like that. So I need to lift this section and rescribe all that. Or what I could also do is, because my scribe, I'm pretty happy with the way the scribe is, the second thing that I can do is just get a laser level, or just a regular level, and mark from this point and make a vertical line to where it's actually plumb. That's another option. And it wouldn't really affect the lines on these two faces. The only thing that it would affect is this side and the other side. And that's a very legitimate option to do, since this piece has no joinery cut into it yet. Getting a new level line on there wouldn't be that big of a deal. Alright guys, so we've done all the micro adjustments that we needed. I've test fitted it on the stone, and the scribe is actually relatively tight, and it's to a place where I'm okay and happy with it. So I'm going to show you guys how it fits. The question is, how tight does your scribe need to be? And it's really whatever you're comfortable with. I would say 1/8 of an inch is about the maximum gap that I would want to see. It's really easy actually to get it down to a 1/16 of an inch, or maybe even a 32nd, but it's going to be very, very difficult to get it to be paper tight. Over time, they do squish down, but that just means that more surface area of the post is going to make contact. Mind you, it's not going to be a drastic amount of movement that you're going to get from that. I'm talking maybe a 32nd, maybe a 1/16 of an inch, which in the grand scheme of timber frames is not at all that much. Alright, so we've set it down and it's matching up with the crosshairs on all 4 sides. Now we're just going to check for plumb. That is plumb enough. And this side is actually perfectly plumb, so I'm happy with it. And in fact, this is the part that matters the most, this level right here, because the tenon goes in this direction. One more thing that I like to do for these posts is I like to mark the perimeter of them. Come over here and I just mark the perimeter just with a pencil. Mind you, the pencil line is going to wear away in the rain, so make sure that you have some dry days ahead of you. And this is especially useful because they're then going to be charred and painted with pine tar. So you're not going to be able to see these black lines. If you have the perimeter lined up, well, then that's pretty easy to place your posts where they belong. When you're done, it should look something like that. And there you have it, folks. That is one scribe post to stone.